Welcome to your best bets. NFL playoff football is here. We've slogged through 18 regular season weeks. We are finally here at Wildcard weekend. We got 6 games to talk about. This is one of the better weekends of the year, not just for football, but for sports. From Saturday afternoon through Monday night, we got wall-to-wall football. It's going to be awesome. Can't wait to talk about it with Zach Fitzgerald. Zach, how are we doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited about this. This is one of the best football weekends of the year, and pretty disappointed that the Colts didn't make it and we aren't able to talk about them. That was embarrassing, to say the least, but excited to discuss what I think are some pretty interesting games and a QB ranking, which I'm extremely excited to talk about.
Yeah, that exercise is going to be fun. We'll start that off in a second. Let's take 1 minute on last week. 2 things that I wanted to just quickly go over. As a Colts fan, that game was completely different than I expected. I'm not a Colts fan, but just as a observer of the league, a fan of the league, that was surprising. Not only that they lost, but they got dominated on both sides of the ball, and really just kind of pushed around.
It was surprising. A game that they were supposed to dominate, a game that they should have just been able to run the ball with Jonathan Taylor. I mean, it's football. It's professional football, and people want to say that the Jags stink and everything like that, but they're still professionals. They still have pride. They still want to come to play, but there's no reason the Colts shouldn't have won that game. They controlled their own destiny, and they lost the final 2 games. It's pretty unexcusable. I think Ballard actually came out saying that they disappointed themselves, disappointed their owner, and disappointed their city, and made some other comments about, at the time, we thought that Wentz was the answer. Didn't go any further into it than that.
I've been talking with some Colts fans that I know, and I can't think of one that wants Wentz back next year, but you're also on the hook for quite a bit of money. It's probably a off-season show afterward. What the Colts do at quarterback. Going around Twitter Sunday night, I just kept seeing all these tickets for people that had the Jags money line parlayed with the tie of the Raiders-Chargers game, and that game was probably the game of the year in a way, because it was Chargers had a huge comeback the last 5 minutes of the game to put it to OT. And I was pretty sure the last 2 minutes of that game was going to end up in a tie. And Brandon Staley takes a questionable timeout and allows the Raiders to get one extra play and get a field goal. But that game was insane as well.
That was a fantastic game. The entire game, I thought that the Chargers are going to win that, just like a lot of games that they've lost this year to allow them to lose or to not make the playoffs. They've just kind of screwed the pooch. They have far too good of a team not to be in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, they have Herbert, so they have years ahead, but to squander one is unnecessarily is disappointing.
I think maybe the most talented team not to make the playoffs. And Herbert, that in that game, the fourth quarter was special. I mean, what he did on that last drive, 17 or 18 plays, multiple 4th down conversions, was they got a real stud there, that's for sure. Off the top, before we get into the 6 wildcard games, I asked you a couple of days ago, because this league is quarterback driven. Quarterback is debated endlessly. The guys that come into the same draft class, they'll always be compared to each other. Guys that are maybe more playoff oriented guys, which is regular season, or vice versa. So I wanted to kind of discuss the quarterbacks tonight. We have 14 quarterbacks playing in the playoffs. Obviously not. We got 12 playing this weekend. We won't see Ryan Tannehill this weekend or Aaron Rodgers, but I wanted to rank the 14 quarterbacks that are in the playoffs. And really the criteria is, who do you trust most from 14 to 1? And you can kind of define trust as in a lot of different ways. Who do you trust to win you a game in the playoffs? Who do you trust to play well? What have you? So did you have trouble with this list?
I had trouble at certain points of this list, and I'm really glad that you prefaced it by not being maybe best quarterback or statistically the greatest quarterback, because I also based it on trust. So yes, I had trouble more in the not the first three picks. I had trouble basically 5 through 9, really, and I
Right.
actually kind of conferred with Jason Herberger on a couple things, and our list differed a little bit on the bottom end. So
Yeah.
there's
Okay.
some differing opinions.
I was pretty solid through the top 8, and I have them in different tiers. 9 through 14 was I could have ranked them almost in any order. So let's start from the bottom. Who do you have at number 14?
I have Jalen Hurts.
Okay,
I
I had.
think for go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I had Hurts at 13, but so we're close on that. Go ahead with Hurts.
I, I mean, I'm interested to know who your 13th is, but for me, Hurts. You know, he does have the legs, but he's turnover prone. Um, he's young. I Of the 14 quarterbacks, he's who I would trust the least, but by a very slight margin.
Yeah, I struggle between 13 and 14. So I had Hurts at 13. And I had Ben Roethlisberger at 14. Um,
I have him at 13.
so unfortunately, this list is not predicated on what you've. It's not necessarily a resume thing. It's what you're. It's partially that, but it's also partially what you're doing right now. Can I trust you right now in this moment? And frankly, I can't trust Big Ben as far as I can throw him, which isn't very far, obviously. And he really looked really rough this season. And I know when you were on a couple weeks ago, I think we talked about a Steelers game, and they have a really talented crew of wide receivers, maybe top 5 or 6 in the league. Najee Harris is a super talented running back. I know they have offensive line issues, but the fact is Ben just looks done. And I just don't know how I could trust him to do much in this game against the Chiefs on Sunday.
Um, for reasons that we'll discuss later, I don't think he'll do well either. But I think the only reason I have him above Hurts is mentally. He's won Super Bowls. Obviously, I think Hurts is probably a better quarterback right now physically, but mentally, just experience, I think, puts Roethlisberger ahead of Hurts. Now, I think Roethlisberger, you look at him, he looks done. I think he looks as bad or worse than Peyton did his last year, and that's hard for me to say, but he has zero mobility whatsoever. He does not have the escapability that he somehow had back in the day, and his arm is terrible.
Yeah.
So I have
Yep.
zero faith in either of the bottom two.
The only reason I had Hurts ahead of him is because I feel like he can make a lot of plays with his legs. He can move. He can move the ball. He's not, like you said, not real accurate at this point in his career. I don't know if he ever will be, but that Philly offense is interesting, and I think he's a large part of it. 12.
I don't really think Hurts is the best quarterback on his team. So that's a different subject.
You're a Minshew guy.
I think he's better than Hurts.
It's a fair argument.
I think he hasn't got a fair shake, but that's a different story.
Might be a target for the Colts next season.
That's just another Band-Aid, but
I know. Yeah. 12. Who do you have?
I have Mac Jones, and that's just for right now. I think Mac Jones is going to be very, very good. And I also think he's set up in an excellent system. So I think he's going to be great. But for right now, he's probably 13. He's not the most mobile.
Yeah.
For me right now, I think he'd be 13.
I have him in the same spot. I have him 12. I have him 12. He's been a very
12,
solid solid game manager this year. Like you said, lack of mobility. He's good when the run game is good. He's good when play action is effective. But as far as, and we'll get into a more Saturday night's game, I don't know how much I trust him to make a lot of plays in that game. And it's based on experience. If he gets another year or two under his belt, I'm sure he'll move up in these rankings. 11.
Number 11, I have Tannehill.
Okay.
I mean, I think the next three are kind of all interchangeable to me. Tannehill, eh, he's just a little less to me than the next two. He does have good mobility,
Mm-hmm.
but aside from that, I also think he kind of makes mistakes. He doesn't have Derrick Henry to fall back on all the time. Now, that doesn't seem to have hurt them terribly at the end of the season, but playoffs is a bit different. And if we're just talking about trust, I trust him less than the next two.
That's fair. I have Tannehill at 9. I have Jimmy G at 11. Jimmy G, I might have had lower if maybe a couple weeks ago on something like this. He showed me a little bit in the game Sunday against the Rams to get them in the playoffs, that late drive to tie the game and then to pull it off in overtime. Obviously, he's had a Super Bowl appearance. I and part of his deal has been availability. He's always injured, but as far as this week, this playoff season, I just still have questions about his accuracy, his decision making, which is interesting because I love that team right now, and I don't know if anyone wants to see that team in the playoffs, because I just think the talent on that team is so strong. But I think Garoppolo is a clear weak link. Interestingly, though, I mean, I think he's a much better option than Trey Lance, and it might be next season as well. But I have him at 12. I have, or I'm sorry, 11. I'm sorry. So I have him at 11. I have Derek Carr at number 10.
Okay, I have Jimmy G at 10.
Okay.
So, I mean, we're still close in that. For me, I just trust him more. And I trust Carr more than him. I think Carr is –
Yeah.
I think you have to put Carr below the top 8 as well, but I think Carr is better than the next 5. I think he's a little more underrated than what he gets credit for.
That's true. Every time this season I bet on the Raiders, though, he burned me. Every time I bet against them, he would have a game where he threw for 315 and 2 touchdowns.
I mean, he's not in the top 8, but
right.
But he's. I just don't think he's. I don't think you can lump him in with the bottom 5. I think he's in a tier of his own, kind of on this place where he could take a fork in the road, or either maybe he becomes great if a few things bounce his way, or maybe he just has a dud of a season and they get somebody different.
Right. So you had Carr at 9, correct?
I had Carr at 9, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we had those 3 guys pretty much in the same spot. I had Tannehill at 9 simply because he's had a couple really nice playoff runs the last couple of years. He revitalized his career after the situation down in Miami, and after they lost Derrick Henry this year, he played solid. I wouldn't say it was outstanding, but I feel like I trust him and his experience a little bit more than Carr. But it's really close. I could go either way on that.
I think my thing with Jimmy G really. Sorry to interrupt. Sorry. I think my thing is only just that, as you said about their team, I think that he has less to do. So if we're talking about trust, it's easier for him just to throw the ball to Kittle on short runs, or hand the ball off to Mitchell, or throw slants to Deebo Samuels, or hand the ball off. So I think Tannehill has to do more. Now, maybe Tannehill's a better quarterback, but it just on a simple trust, I just trust Garoppolo in the playoffs more because he has to do less. And I want a quarterback that's not great to do as little as possible.
Yeah. Fair point. Number 8.
I have Kyler Murray.
Yeah, that's where I have him as well.
Okay. I didn't know where that was going to go. I know a lot of people are extremely high on him, like people that I imagine there's people that I've talked to that would put him at 4, 5, 6. But for me, I would trust the other 7 more than him in the playoffs currently.
Yeah, if you would have asked me that question after week 6 when they were rolling, I would have probably had a different answer. I don't know. It seems like this happened last year and now this year, where I don't know if he's completely healthy. Takes a lot of he's small. These hits really add up over the course of the season, and they haven't looked great as a team, but he has just not looked as good as he has earlier in the or middle of the season. So, and I really struggled with 6, 7, and 8. It was probably my toughest area where I interchanged these guys multiple times. So I'm with you on Kyler at 8, and he's so young and still gaining experience where he will only go up this list in the future if the Cardinals can stay relevant. 7.
I have Dak at 7.
I had Dak at 6. So let's hear the argument for Dak at 7.
I mean, I had Dak at 6, and then I thought about who I had at 6, and I think they're similar players, and I think the guy at 6 being Stafford is physically more talented. Now, I think they're both prone to making mistakes, but I think physically at their A+ game, Stafford is better. I think Stafford's boy, I was about to say something. I don't know. I think both of their teams are equally as talented, but I trust Stafford's physical ability more than Dak's.
Okay. I had Stafford at 7, Dak at 6, and I guess I've seen a little bit too much, or maybe more than I expected this year, and especially the last 5, 6 games of Detroit Lions, Matt Stafford, where all the physical ability, like you said, great arm, but just some backbreaking mistakes. He had a backbreaking turnover last week when it looked like the Rams were going to maybe put them away early, and I think a turnover or two this against the Cardinals, who they're going to play on Monday night, or whoever they're playing in the playoffs, is just it's a different type of momentum breaker than it is in the regular season. And I feel like Stafford's more prone to that than Dak is, and that's why I have Dak slightly ahead of Stafford. But again, it's almost a coin flip right there for me.
I couldn't argue with that at all. I mean, Stafford, like you said, at the beginning of the season, he was playing like a guy that could be in the top 3 or 4 of this conversation. And then now he's making the mistakes that he was making in Detroit, and he's where he is. But I think those two are interchangeable as well.
I'm surprised so far that we're so much on the same wavelength. I expected maybe a little bit more disparity in the list, but we're pretty close so far. I think I know who you'll have at 5.
I have Josh Allen at 5.
Oh, okay. That's not who I thought you'd have Burrow. I have Burrow at 5 and Allen at 4. So you have Burrow. You trust Burrow more than Josh Allen right now.
Absolutely. 100%. Without question, actually. I think Josh Allen's a great quarterback. Obviously, physically more gifted, better arm, better runner, also significantly better at turning the ball over. And I think Burrow is going to be fantastic in the years to come. And I think he's already fantastic. He has an excellent team. The only thing that he doesn't really have going for him, truthfully, is his offensive line is a little shoddy, giving up 55 sacks this year. But I will trust. If you ask me to buy Burrow or Allen stock, I will take Burrow.
I can't argue with it too much. Burrow continuously has won big games in the last few years of his career. If you think about going back to LSU, beating Clemson in the title game this year, even clinching the playoff berth against the Chiefs, or I guess clinching the division against the Chiefs a couple weeks ago. He just seems like a big game player, and you can definitely not deny that. He's extremely accurate with the ball. He's got just some sort of moxie and confidence that is, you just can't teach it. And he's better than I thought he would be. He really is. And I've been really impressed, and I can't wait to watch him and see how big his star grows. I have Allen ahead of him, and You did make me question a little bit there because I think he is a little bit more free with the ball. I like his athletic ability and his ability to make, frankly, just some insane plays with his legs. And when he's going with his legs, he's unstoppable. Whoever they played a couple weeks. Oh, it was the game at the Patriots, I think 3 weeks ago, where I think he threw for 3, ran for a couple, 70, 80 yards rushing. I mean, if he's like that in the playoffs, he's extremely difficult to stop. And I just like his ceiling a little bit more right now than Burrow's, and that's why I have him just one spot ahead of him. That was sort of when I started my list. I knew who I was going to have at number 4. That's where I started. That's the first name I put down, because I knew who I was going to have in the top 3. I had to really think about the rankings, and so I'll go with my number 3. I had Aaron Rodgers at 3.
Oh my. Ooh. Wow. I have Brady at 3.
So you have the greatest quarterback of all time at 3, and
the greatest. That doesn't mean the best. I mean, there's a big. He has had the greatest career of all time.
Sure, I didn't say most talented. Greatest, the greatest. I mean,
but
I'm interested to hear. So did you have Rodgers at 1?
Oh yeah, unquestioned.
Okay, so I was talking to someone about this, actually a Packers fan that I work with, that you have to question. There's a little bit of a Peyton Manning type playoff record with Rodgers, that there's been some home losses as favorites to moderately sized favorites in the past. It just hasn't been his best football in the playoffs compared to the regular season version of Aaron Rodgers. Is that fair to say?
Sure.
Okay.
But I'll still take him.
So this season,
I still think he's overall, all around, the best quarterback that I've ever seen play. All together, packaged together. He might be slowing down a little bit with the running, but there was one point where with his legs, he was ridiculous. And mentally, he's as good as Mahomes, Brady, or Brady. Arm strength, he's as good. He's better than Brady and as good as Mahomes. Has, with Hill being a little banged up, the most dominant receiver, and has a bye, so gets to rest up a little bit, and also has an extremely cold weather advantage that no cold weather will ever be a problem for him.
That's correct.
He cannot go into a game where you're saying weather's a factor, because where is weather a factor more than Lambeau? So correct. I just think it's all the factors.
I don't necessarily disagree. There's just something that's been missing why they've consistently came up short, while the Packers have not made a Super Bowl since, I guess, 2011. I think that's correct. There's just something missing. I know what I saw last year. I saw Tom Brady go into Lambeau, win that game. I saw Brady unexpectedly just handle the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I gotta have Brady at 1. And physically, yeah, Rodgers and Mahomes, they out talent him at this point. But Brady just steps it up in the playoffs like no other quarterback ever has. And until I stop seeing it, I can't not put him at number 1.
It's difficult for me to have this conversation because I'm absolutely not a Brady hater. I think he's the greatest quarterback of all time, greatest career. I mean, unbelievable that he's playing as well as he is at his age, but predominantly he's always had a great team. And that thing you're talking about in Green Bay is the exact same thing that Manning had for all the years, is just doesn't quite have that caliber of defense or the caliber of team around him, but he's able to have the best record in the NFL again this year. And it becomes a little bit more difficult just to carry a team as a quarterback, I think, in the playoffs than what it is in the regular season. I don't remember who gave the interview, but they were talking about how they said most players go like 50% on most plays. I doubt that's the case in the playoffs. A totally different game, I think, and I think that a lot of that doesn't necessarily fall on Rodgers. I think it falls on management. It's not as if he's had bad games; they just have been beaten. And last year, I mean, again, I'm not bashing Brady. He's excellent. He could absolutely be number one, and your argument is totally valid. But would you have taken his team last year? Like his team, take him out of the equation, take Rodgers out of the equation. Would you rather have the roster of the Buccaneers or Green Bay?
Well, last year, yeah, for sure the Buccaneers. Yeah, their defense they got right at the right time, and their defense was they're obviously a huge part of that Super Bowl winning team. But I don't think we should. I don't think with saying that can't really discredit Brady because I think he struggled in the first half of that NFC Championship game last year, but he made a lot of plays in the second half. I remember he played really nicely, solidly in the Super Bowl. I wanted to just it's such a there's a bit of a crutch to fall back on when you talk about the team that surrounds the guy because Brady's had his share of Super Bowl teams that maybe weren't that great when they were really struggling for a true number one receiver. When Julian Edelman, great playoff receiver, was acting as their number one receiver. I know that those years they had Gronk, but they didn't really have much of a running game during those times either. It's hard to separate the quarterback play versus the team because a great quarterback, these top three guys can truly carry poor or mediocre teams to wins. And it's hard to separate, and it's probably just a preference. And
Well, I think something that and I hear it talked about, but when people use the excuse that I used about him having great teams, I mean, one of the reasons is because he sacrificed money to allow those teams to be better. And if that doesn't get talked about in his legacy as a model of how to actually win long term and as a franchise, then the quarterbacks that are taking 35% of the cap room only have themselves to blame when they don't have an offensive line or receivers to throw to. So you can have your money or you can have enough money. And I guess it's not my money. I shouldn't be talking like that, but he should be a model of how to win long term. He sacrificed, made enough money, won rings, is thought of as the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
I think his whole encompassing legacy is the greatest of all time for sure.
Again, I think splitting hairs between the top three right now. So we both have Mahomes at 2. I think Mahomes is still just in that spot where now he's how many Super Bowls is he gonna get to in his career? We know he's got the talent to build this legacy that could potentially, or this career that could potentially rival Brady. But man, after last year, that was sort of a big swing because if he gets his second at the age of 25 and he sort of has the next 10, 12 years in front of him. And when that flips, it makes it hard to see how Mahomes could get there. But I think the talent level we agree is on the same level of Rodgers, maybe just more experience. We saw maybe a bit of comeback this year with Mahomes, turn the ball over a lot more. Teams really played that too high safety defense where they just forced him to go underneath all day. And it seemed like he wanted to go for the home run ball a lot and got impatient at times. So interested to see if he can learn from what he saw from defenses this year. But as we talk about the playoffs this year, it seemed like the last 3 or 4 weeks, they kind of figured some things out and they started playing better. So I still trust Mahomes to get through the AFC, frankly.
Yeah, I do as well. I don't know. I trust him. I don't know if I trust him necessarily to get through the AFC. I do trust him. I think that that there are a couple teams that could be kind of shocking in the AFC. I think that is pretty wide open, honestly.
Mhm.
It's really all dependent on who gets injured in the wild card games and the divisional playoffs. They got to the Super Bowl last year, but he got shellacked because they had no offensive line by the time that they got to the Super Bowl. And I mean, he couldn't protect himself, so it made him look like a totally different person. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
I absolutely trust him. I think he's great physically. I just trust Rodgers more at this point. Now that there could be a point where we're talking about Mahomes in the same longevity wise and experience wise, but I don't think that Mahomes or any person in the near future is going to have the career that Brady's had. Numbers wise,
Yeah. It's hard to see that for anyone at this point. He's gotten so far out there now with the
mhm.
total Super Bowls and so forth. Um, Good exercise, good discussion.
Mhm.
Um, I figured you'd have Rodgers at one just based on previous conversations, so I wasn't necessarily
Mhm.
surprised. And really, the lists were pretty comparable in
Mhm.
the different tiers that we had, and I'll be interested to see if there's anyone that we had at the bottom that really surprises us, or if there's anyone we had toward the top that lets us down this playoff season. Let's get to the game, Zach. We got 6 to go through, so we'll spend a couple minutes on each, give our thoughts, and give our what side we're leaning to at this point. We'll go chronologically here. It's the first game Saturday at 4:30. The Raiders at the Bengals. Uh, this number started at, I believe, 6.5. It opened at 6.5. It is now sitting at Bengals by 5, over under at 48.5. 51% of the bets on Cincinnati. But Zach, 91% of the bets are on the Raiders, uh, which is really surprising to me. Bengals have not won a playoff game since 1991. Oh my God, I didn't realize that. So we're talking 30 plus years of playoff ineptitude. Doesn't end this game.
Yes, I think it does. I will take the Bengals minus the points. It looks like the temperature is going to be 28 degrees, 9-mile-per-hour winds. So no inclement weather, not terribly windy. It looks like T. Higgins is the only person majorly on the offense that is slightly limited but expected to play. Waller's been limited for a while with a knee. Drake's out with an ankle for the rest of the year. I think that the Bengals offense is just an explosion waiting to happen. They've allowed 55 sacks, but they've also had 16 40-plus yard plays, 54 total TDs, 4 yards per carry rushing. And the Raiders defense has given up 43 20-plus yards plays and 10 40-yard plus plays. So I just think that, with them throwing it deep to Jamar Chase all the time, throwing it to T. Higgins, with Boyd out there as well, I think that they're going to struggle to defensively just keep up.
Saw the Chargers last week really make a lot of headway throwing the ball, at least in that fourth quarter. Um, I think you're right. I think Chase, Higgins, and company can do a lot of damage through the air. I like how balanced the Bengals are on offense. Mixon had a great year. He's probably a top 6 or 7 running back in the league. I think the big question for me is if they can they protect Burrow. Max Crosby was a maniac on Sunday night against the Chargers. Maybe one of the better games I've seen him in defensive end play in a while. He had so many pressures. So I don't know if they need to work on chipping him, doubling him, whatever it takes to keep Burrow upright. I think that's the key to this game to me is protecting Burrow. They'll have enough explosive plays down the field. This Raiders team it's like a cat with 9 lives. You couldn't kill them this year, no matter what happened to them, losing their coach, all the off the field controversies. And you got to be impressed with what they did. But it was also a hugely emotional game that they played not that long ago. That game ended around midnight on Sunday night. celebration, kind of like, man, big deal. We were in the playoffs. I don't want to say it's a Super Bowl like celebration, but that's an emotional high. And then they play the very first game the following Saturday with the travel. The Bengals sat their key guys last week. Burrow rested. Jamar Chase played very sparingly early in that game. So the Bengals were the more rested team. They didn't have to travel. Home field advantage. Like you said, it's going to be a colder game. The Raiders are an indoor team at this point. So I'm going to go with you here. I like the Bengals. Give the 5 points. I think the Bengals get their first playoff win since 1991. I think this could be the game of the week coming up. This is going to be a great game. 8:15 Saturday night. The Saturday night wildcard games are, I don't know, it just feels, there's just a certain feel about it, and it's going to be awesome in Buffalo, which I think is the best home field advantage in football. And Zach, I was going to mention this before we talked about the last game, but the last 4 years of the wild card weekend, okay, that's 18 games. Underdogs are actually 14-4 straight up, and 15-3 against the spread. So underdogs have dominated this weekend the last 4 years. Of course, we both picked the favorite in the first game. See what we think here with the Pats Bills. The Bills are favored by 4, over under at 44. Obviously, these two teams split in the regular season. The Patriots won that really memorable game with all the wind in Buffalo, where they threw it like 3 times, 4 times, whatever, and just pounded the ball all night. Supposed to be under 10 degrees in this game Saturday night, correct?
Yes, it is. Not much wind, but in this game, I waffled on this one a bunch. I'm circling names on the games that I like, and my hand went to the Patriots. So I'm going to take the Patriots -4 in this. I think it could be a really close game, predicated mainly on running again. And although Josh Allen can run, the Patriots have 3 running backs that they can just sub in and out and just pound the ball down the Bills. Now, you're talking about the number 1 and the number 2 scoring defenses in the league. So I think the under is a pretty fair bet here.
Yeah.
But for no other reason other than I just have this gut feeling about the Patriots in the playoffs and Mac Jones doing just enough and making few enough mistakes to allow the Patriots to probably capitalize on a Josh Allen mistake late in the game to win.
You like the Pats to win this one outright.
I do.
There could be mutiny if the Bills lose this game. I don't know why, but this was the one that I waffled on as well, back and forth. Both these quarterbacks are not cold weather guys. I know Josh Allen plays in Buffalo, but his record, not necessarily his record, but his performance in cold weather is not great. His quarterback rating is not good. And Mac is obviously from the South. He's not used to this kind of weather. It's going to be probably wind chill around 0 or less than that Saturday night. So I think you made a good point. I think the running game is going to be important for both teams. At this point, you'd trust the Patriots running game a lot more than the Bills running game. They just didn't have anything consistently effective. Singletary made some plays down the stretch in the last couple games, but against inferior opponents. I think I'm with you as far as the Patriots covering the 4. And of course, the elephant in the room, Belichick, perhaps the greatest coach ever. I mean, you just have to side with Belichick here. You just got to. He's getting the points, his experience, just the way he can draw up a game plan to take away your best asset on offense. I think the Bills win this game, but I think the Patriots cover. I think it's a field goal game. And I think the under is definitely in play here. It could be 2017 type of game, 23-20 game. So we both like the Pats to cover. You just like them to win. Money line on that would be +170. Sunday, 1:00. Philadelphia Eagles, the 7 seed, traveling to the champs in Tampa. Tampa is favored by 9.5. Looks like 62% of the bets are on the Bucks. 77% of the money has come in on the Eagles in this game. This game originally opened at 8.5. It's kind of stayed around 9.5 since then. Zach, thoughts here? Will the Eagles be able to offer enough resistance defensively to cover this?
No, I don't think so. Brady still trying to make a statement, still trying to win another Super Bowl, still hungry at his age, and smarter than probably he's ever been. So, no, I don't think so. I don't trust Hurts. I think Hurts will make mistakes against that defense. So, no, I don't. I think this one is easier game to pick than most. I would take Tampa Bay minus the points.
I think I'm with you. I think I like that. There's something that worries me about that number as a potential backdoor cover. Late, say that the Bucks are up 16 points and the Eagles are driving the last couple minutes just to get it closer. And I guess I worry about that with the NFL every week with every game is the backdoor cover with a large underdog like this. But I don't know how the Eagles win this game because I just feel like the Bucks are far superior on both sides of the ball. I know the Bucks have had some issues defensively with some injuries. They're secondary, but that's not the Eagles' best trait on offense. They've run the ball really well this year. I feel like that plays into the Bucks' hands. That's what the Bucks can. I feel like slow down the run game and make Hurts throw the ball. I think that's what they're going to try to make him do. And frankly, I just don't think he's there yet. So I think I'll side with you. I think I'll lay the 9.5 and take the Bucks here. I think that over is probably. I think the over probably hits 46. Seems like it's a little bit low. I could see the Bucks putting up over 30 in this game. Pretty easily. And if you are in on props, I love Mike Evans in this game to score at least a touchdown. You might want to look at 2 touchdowns because I really don't know how they stop Evans in this game. And with Godwin out and Antonio Brown obviously MIA, you could see a lot of Mike Evans in this playoff run for the Bucks.
Did you see his quote? Did you see Antonio Brown's quote this week?
Which one?
Well, he said it was probably unnecessary and unprofessional for me to leave the field like that. And that was just the quote.
Well, he was.
Yep.
He was talking quite a bit about a lot of people this last week and text and sharing all kinds of information. He was going after Brady. I mean, Brady let him stay at his house with his family. I mean, come on, dude. That guy's crazy.
I don't know.
4:30 Sunday. This game may be the most compelling as far as just the matchup. The 49ers at the Cowboys. Cowboys are favored by 3, over under at 50.5. We talked a little bit earlier about the 49ers. It might be the team you don't want to see. They're really talented on both sides of the ball. They've gotten healthy at the right time. They got a bunch of blue chippers on the roster, but frankly, the Cowboys too. Defensively, Micah Parsons, if he's not defensive player of the year, he's probably runner up. He's a force, and offensively, this team was unstoppable early and middle of the season. Dak got hurt, came back. They kind of have not been exactly the same offense as they were early. Still got Zeke. Tony Pollard might be the better running back, and they got that slew of wide receivers that are scary to face. What's the take on this one, Zach?
This one was hard. And I have the Cowboys circled, giving the points, but just hearing you talk, and this one's really hard for me. I think the easier bet here is I think the over hits, but man, this one's hard. You got Dallas, who's the number 1 scoring offense in the league, but Debo can break a play at any point. Mitchell's playing great. Ayuk is a great deep receiver, and Kittle's amazing. So really, I guess it stands on if Jimmy G makes mistakes. They're in a dome, so the weather's not going to be a problem. I do think Gallup's out with an ACL for the rest of the year, so that's going to hurt a little bit. But Schultz might be able to pick up a little bit of the slack there. I'm probably going to bet the Cowboys. I'll say Cowboys -3. I think overall they're just a little bit more offensively powerful, and Parsons really has been a wrecking ball. I do think he wins Rookie of the Year, but I think the Watt brothers will have a mutiny if TJ does not win this year after breaking the sack record.
Yeah. Parsons will be a shoo-in for Defensive Rookie of the Year, but I think he'll probably come up short for the Defensive Player of the Year. 60% of the bets are on the Niners. 80% of the money is on the Niners. So this has very much become a public and sharp underdog in this game, which is kind of scary because in the NFL, if everyone's saying one thing, usually it's you just go the other way. You just fade what everyone else thinks. I'm a little nervous about the pick as well, but I think for some of the reasons you talked about, I'm going to take the Cowboys as well. I don't feel great about it. I would feel better. I would feel better if this game were 2.5. And honestly, if it goes up to 3.5 or 4, which I don't think it will because of where the money's coming, I would feel better about the Niners. But the 3 seems right. I think the Cowboys make just enough plays and a really tight game. Force Garoppolo into a turnover to a couple bad decisions. And as long as Dak takes care of the football, I feel like the Cowboys win this game. I can't wait to watch that one, though.
I think it's going to be a great game.
Sunday night, Steelers, 8:15, the Steelers at the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City is favored by the biggest number of the week, 12.5 points, over under at 45.5. The Chiefs are getting 56% of the bets. The Steelers are getting 58% of the money. So the money is coming in on the Steelers. This opened at 13.5. The money's driven it down to 12.5. Zach, I think you foreshadowed it earlier, but I believe you're going to like Kansas City in this one.
I am going to like the Steelers, I believe, in this one, actually.
Is that right? Did I read that wrong?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we were talking about what the weather is going to be: 28 degrees, 15-mile-an-hour winds, 4 to 8 inches of snow. Stopping prior to game time, but clean up, cold, frozen field. Tyreek Hill kind of hurt. Carlos Edwards-Helaire hurt. I think the Chiefs are going to win the game. I don't trust Big Ben whatsoever, but I think that the Steelers do enough in cold weather defensively to keep it within 10 points. I think it's a lower scoring game than what it should be in non-adverse conditions. So I think it's the under and Steelers too. It could be like a 24-17 game.
I read that wrong earlier. We were trashing Ben to start the podcast, and so you must think he plays at least decently here to keep him in the game.
I don't think he even needs to play. I just think he needs to not make mistakes. I think that the weather is going to do enough to neutralize the speed necessary of the Chiefs. I don't think the Chiefs are going to feel like they need to do as much up against the Steelers, so they may play a little bit more of a conservative game style because of the weather. And Najee Harris can run the ball. They can throw it to Johnson in the flat, get a couple balls to Claypool, score a couple touchdowns and a field goal. And I think that's enough to keep it within 12.5 points.
You may be right. It's a big number. I think the weather that you've talked about would definitely play in the Chiefs' hands. The Chiefs notoriously this season had a lot of trouble stopping the run, effective running games. I don't think this is a hugely dynamic running game, but it's good enough where it could cause some problems. And if you're the Steelers, you're just trying to control the clock. keep Mahomes and
Mhm.
that offense off the field. It's the same strategy that you'd play against a really great offense that we saw teams try to play against Brady in the past. Um, I love underdogs as well. I don't think I could take the Steelers here, Zach. I just saw them enough where they just looked so bad and so inept, and I just can't do it. I probably won't bet the 12 and a half. What I really like 6 point tees here. 6 point tees with the Bucks. Tease the Bucks down to 3.5 and the Chiefs down to 6.5. That 6 point teaser's at -120. I'm going to get a little bit more creative with those bigger lines. It's probably a cowardly way of doing it, but it ensures that Chiefs win by a touchdown. It'll help me out in that teaser. But I don't feel good about the line, so I'll probably just stay away from the 12 and a half overall. Monday night, first Monday night playoff game that we've ever had. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Cardinals reeling the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season, coming off a loss to Seattle. Not a meaningful loss at all, but still a loss. At the LA Rams, Rams are favored by 4 in this game, over under at 49. 55% of the bets on the Cards, 59% of the money on the Cardinals. Kyler Murray and company and that offense. First of all, do we know if Hopkins is going to be back for this game?
I have not seen anything. I didn't see that he was. I don't have his name written down. I thought he was done.
I'll check on that while we're talking here. I guess this is a game where I don't really trust either side right now.
I don't like this one either. I have the Rams. I think if you force me to bet, I take the Rams -4. I trust them more. I trust Stafford a little more than I trust Murray. I think that, I mean, unless Hopkins is back, I think that Stafford has a obviously better receiving core. They're gonna struggle to stop Kupp. Beckham's been playing better, and Van Jefferson is a good downfield threat. So, and the Rams also have. Is he going to be back?
He is out. He is out this week.
Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, and the Rams have Aaron Donald. So Aaron Donald is a one-man wrecking crew in the middle, and the double and triple teams that he takes up frees up everybody else on the outside. So I don't love putting money on this game, but if I had to, I would take the Rams -4. But I think that I like the over. I mean, they play in LA. It's supposed to be 71 degrees with 7-mile-per-hour winds and sunny. So you can't get much better conditions than that. The guys will get a little breeze when they get too warm, but it won't really affect the football. So not a big deal.
I agree with you. I think I'm more comfortable laying the 4 with the Rams here. Kyler without Hopkins seems to be a different quarterback. I love the Ertz pickup in the middle of the season. I'm sure he'll get more play in this game. But you got an aging AJ Green. Christian Kirk's more of probably a number 2 or number 3. It's a different offense the last couple of weeks, and for all the Rams' shortcomings, this is a really talented team. They have the best receiver in the league, Cooper Kupp. I think he'll continue to make a lot of plays in this game. Sony Michel has been effective running the ball the last 4 or 5 weeks. And, I referred to Stafford earlier as maybe some of the Detroit Lion version of Stafford coming through. I think he'll make enough plays in this game for them to win the game and cover the 4. So we see eye to eye on that one. Couple we differ on, but I think for the most part we gave some good insight into these games, some good thoughts. I think we both struggled on the Pats, Bills, 49ers, Cowboys. That seemed to be the 2 that you could go either way on. Any final thoughts on the slate? Any parlays you've put together yet, or are you still working on that?
No, I have like a full season stats kind of weird little thing that I saw. So I was looking through like number of 40-yard plays, for defenses and all this stuff. And the Falcons this year had only 19 sacks, which was significantly lower than anybody else, but gave up 0 40-plus yards plays. So I'm not sure how that happened, giving the quarterback that much time and no 40-plus yards plays against you. I just thought that was kind of an interesting statistic.
Yeah. I think the matchup that I'm most anxious to see of any of them is Josh Allen going against this Patriots defense and how Belichick's going to defend him, especially in that cold weather, and what the game plan is going to be for the Bills offensively. Such a pass heavy scheme. Can they run the ball and get some balance in that game? I think that's going to be really key. Zach?
Yeah, he has a.
Oh, sorry. Go
Belichick
ahead.
has a tendency. Belichick has a tendency of, especially with Josh Allen, kind of running over them in the previous matchup of trying to take away what your one great option is. And I think especially in this weather, if he runs a spy on Josh Allen and kind of contains him a little bit more, I think that it kind of all fits with the style that I'm hoping the Patriots play to try to neutralize the Bills in order to win this game. But I mean, Josh Allen could have a great game.
And Belichick, I mean, notoriously against especially division rivals like the Bills, it might not show you everything in the regular season in anticipation of seeing you later on and maybe giving you a look that you haven't seen before. Obviously, it's worked out a few times for him in the past. All right, Zach, this was fun. We broke it down and we ranked a bunch of quarterbacks, and hopefully people will benefit from this listening this weekend.
Yeah, I had a great time. And I hope that everybody's bets go well, and we'll see where we stand at next week.
Your best bets on Instagram, Facebook. Check out our YouTube channel. You can look at Zach and I talk to each other this week if you choose to. We'll be back next Monday for golf and another playoff round next week. So appreciate everyone listening. We'll catch you next week.